In the west of Ireland, there's a forest that doesn't appear on any map. Stories say it lures lost people in and never lets them leave. John is currently running through it, trying to find an exit before night falls. His watch has stopped and he keeps coming back to the same place, not to mention the multiple signs that say point of no return with different numbers on them. Suddenly a bunch of birds fly above John as he notices it's nighttime already, so he tries climbing a tree to hide. Unfortunately, the branch breaks and he falls. Scared, John reaches into his bag for a knife, but a mysterious creature appears and drags him away before he can defend himself. Meanwhile in the city, American immigrant and artist Mina works at a pet store. One afternoon her boss introduces her to a bird that must be taken to a zoo in another city and asks her to make the trip. Mina names the bird Darwin before taking him home. She tells him today is the 15th anniversary of her mother's death, so tonight she'll be going out to forget. She puts on a wig and goes to a bar with a fake name and fake job to meet guys. The next morning she asks Darwin not to judge her, explaining she likes playing dress up because the real her isn't likable. She leaves the city in her car to do the delivery, driving through the countryside and only stopping for gas. During the trip, she gets a call from her twin sister, but Mina doesn't pick up and hears the voicemail instead. Her sister calls Mina out for not going to their mother's memorial and mentions it's been 15 years, so Mina should stop avoiding her family. Ignoring the voicemail too, Mina drives away without noticing the sign with dozens of missing people signs near the forest. Moments later Mina is crossing the forest and doesn't recognize the area. Her phone and the car radio start failing right before the car breaks down, leaving Mina stranded. She gets out of the vehicle and finds a point of no return sign, which makes her think someone lives nearby. Mina returns to the car to grab her bag and Darwin, then she starts wandering as she calls for help. Nothing happens and Mina decides to go back, but when she turns around the car is gone. Now she has no choice but to keep wandering to find an exit. When night falls, a bunch of birds suddenly fly above her and she hears some noises only to notice an old woman running nearby. A desperate Mina starts running after her and sees her enter a building where the woman tells her to rush inside if she wants to live. Mina does exactly that and discovers two more people inside. The old woman says her name is Madeline, and the others are Sierra and Daniel. They call this building the Coop and they got lost in the forest too, so now they hide there. The group drags Mina to a mirrored window as Madeline explains the creatures outside are called the Watchers. They come every night to watch them through the window and leave by sunset. Madeline makes Mina take a step forward and the Watchers can be heard clapping as a welcome to the show. Afterward Mina sits and stares at the mirrored window while thinking about her mother. In the morning, Mina leaves the Coop, ignoring the others' warnings. As she wanders through the forest, she hears her name being whispered and notices a girl in the distance asking her why she did that. Terrified, Mina starts running and makes it to the top of a hill, where she learns that she's in the middle of an enormous forest that doesn't have an end in sight. When Mina comes back, Madeline tells her they've all tried to leave but nobody could. The forest causes hallucinations and can drive a person mad. The signs are landmarks placed in a circle around a half-day journey from the Coop and they work as a boundary. Crossing the line means never coming back. These signs were built by someone called the Professor. Mina has no choice but to return with the others to the Coop. In the evening, Daniel makes a speech to announce Mina's return to the show and Sierra plays some music to dance for the Watchers. They've found some DVDs of a reality show so Mina tries to keep herself distracted with that, noticing the professor's name on the back of the box. The next morning, the group goes out to find food and Sierra teaches Mina how to recognize medicinal plants. Sierra explains that Daniel often gets headaches and that according to John, he likes Sierra. John is Sierra's husband and left 6 days ago, but they haven't heard from him since then. Sierra also shares Madeline's theory that says seeing a Watcher could drive someone crazy. Then she shows Mina a burrow, explaining there are a bunch of them all over the forest. They're connected underground in a system of tunnels and that's where the Watchers live during the day. To Mina's shock, Sierra admits she and John arrived here around 5 months ago, although she lost count and isn't really sure. Later during lunch, Madeline teaches Mina the rules to survive. They must never turn their backs to the mirror, never open the door after dark, never go near the burrows, and always stay in the light. The three of them recite the rules together in a rather creepy way. As days pass, Mina tries to keep herself busy watching the reality show and sketching on her notebook. In the evenings, she stares at the mirror and hears some noises outside, but she's skeptical. One night, she goes to bed too soon and the creatures start roaring and screeching outside, so Madeline makes her stare at the mirror until they calm down. Sometime later Daniel goes to check on their traps for animals, mentioning he used to hunt with John. Mina comes along and keeps on seeing that little girl in the forest. Daniel explains that Madeline used to be a university teacher so that's why she thinks she knows it all. He's been here 8 months, and Mina finds it weird that he's never seen a Watcher. Both Daniel and Mina admit they're skeptical of Madeline's story and Mina proposes to go into a burrow, ignoring Daniel's fearful protests. Using a rope held by Daniel, Mina descends into a burrow and looks around with a lighter. She finds tons of abandoned objects, including a newspaper from 1992, a video camera, and a plush rabbit. There's also a bicycle that Mina sends up to Daniel through the rope. At that moment she hears a weird noise in the darkness and Mina calls for Daniel, but he doesn't reply. Suddenly a hand with 6 fingers slowly reaches out of the darkness while speaking a strange language and Mina screams again, this time finally getting the rope back. Moments later, Mina shows Sierra and Madeline all the things they brought out of the hole, saying they found them under a big rock. Mina thinks the bicycle could help them escape, but Madeline doesn't agree and she can tell Mina has seen something. She keeps asking her about it, but Mina denies it. Meanwhile, Daniel connects the camera to the coup's power source, explaining the professor must have installed it when he built this place. By connecting the TV as well, now they have a basic surveillance system. That night the group waits at the table for something to appear on the screen. Suddenly Sierra hears a noise and legs appear on the camera as someone knocks on the door. The person talks and Sierra is excited to hear John, who begs them to let him in. Madeline immediately forbids it, reminding Sierra that the watchers can play tricks to bait them. While John keeps begging and saying he's hurt, an argument ensues, during which Madeline forces Mina and Daniel to admit they messed with a burro. Sierra still wants to save her husband, so Madeline makes her ask something only he would know. Unfortunately, John fails to remember what book Madeline is reading even though they bought it together because it reminded him of her. Still in denial, Sierra asks John to put his face on camera. At that moment John appears on the screen and asks for help before he's dragged away. Then something hits the camera, breaking it. The group rushes to stand in front of the mirror while the furious watcher outside hits it repeatedly until it cracks. The next morning, Madeline throws the bicycle back into the burrow, hoping to calm the watchers down. Mina promises she's done breaking the rules. In the burrow, the bicycle is dragged into the darkness. A flashback then shows how a young Mina had been on a car ride with her sister and her mother, revealing that the little girl in the forest looks like the twins did back then. Mina kept breaking the rules and this triggered an argument with her mom, who forced the window to close and caught Mina's fingers. Her scream distracted her mother and this caused the car to crash. In the present, Mina continues to sketch the signs and comments on the fact the forest is playing with her mind before marking the trees she's already checked on. Weeks continue to pass, causing the days to become colder and shorter. Everyone has lost all hope to escape and is starting to crack. Mina overhears Madeline snapping at Daniel, scolding him because he hasn't caught anything in a while and they could starve soon. In the coop, Sierra ignores all the bickering by watching the reality show and Mina keeps doodling on the floor. Suddenly she turns around and notices Sierra is gone. Mina runs into the forest and finds Sierra standing on the edge of a burrow, considering self-deleting to be with John again. At that moment they hear a scream and follow the noise to find Daniel tying Madeline up. She says Daniel lost his mind, but Daniel just announces now they're playing by their own rules before running back to the coop. Sierra runs after him but Mina stays back to free Madeline. Afterward the duo run back to the coop, only to discover Daniel and Sierra have locked the door. The birds are starting to fly around them, so they have no choice but to run and hide inside one of the traps, which has a rotting smell that may mask their scent. While Sierra and Daniel stand in front of the mirror, a watcher finally appears above the trap, but it can't detect the women and runs toward the coop. It stands up at full height and roars, summoning more imposing watchers. When they get too close to the coop, Daniel tells them 2 of them are missing, so the watchers go hunting for the missing women. With the area around the coop clear, Mina and Madeline run to the door and beg for mercy. Mina starts sharing the story of how she caused the death of her mother and how she can't live with that guilt, telling Daniel he'll be haunted by the same mistake. The door finally opens and the duo rushes inside before locking it again. Madeline immediately scolds Daniel and says she should have killed him months ago, but now it's more important to deal with the watchers. The group stands in front of the mirror and Madeline explains she used to teach folklore and mythology. She came to the forest for research and on her first night she saw a watcher that looked like a deformed version of her. The watchers are in many classic stories and are also known as changelings or fairies. They want to watch the humans to study them and eventually become them. Suddenly a watcher starts knocking on the door, copying Sierra's voice to beg for help. Soon more watchers start climbing over the coop, imitating the humans' voices to try to bait them out. After the group pushes a table in front of the door, they hear a strange noise and notice a square on the floor under the carpet. As the watchers get more and more aggressive outside, Daniel hits the square until it opens and they discover a bunker. The group immediately goes downstairs with Darwin, closing the hatch right before the watchers finally freak into the coop. When they turn on the lights, they find the place where the professor used to work. It's full of files, books, and food, which will keep them alive for a long while. There's also a very old computer with no internet access, but Mina finds a series of video diary entries that started in 2009. Professor Rory explains how fascinated he is by the creatures that look at him through the window. Each video shows how Rory is slowly losing his mind and he eventually admits the people he hired to build the coop were killed by the watchers every day. On another video, he mentions a watcher appeared to him in the shape of a little girl and he wonders if humans could make use of that power. The next recording reveals Rory was able to capture a watcher and tried to befriend it, but the creature was furious. The last video was recorded on day 300 and Rory admitted defeat. He planned to kill the watcher and self-delete, but first he had a message in case someone found this. He left a boat on the river past sign 134, which can be found by following the birds. Rory also asked the viewer to go to his office in the university and destroy all his things. Mina cries as she hears the shots in the recording. The group agrees they'll leave on the boat in the morning and Sierra plays some music to celebrate. She tries making Daniel dance with her, only for Daniel to get depressed when he explains he got lost in the forest after escaping his abusive dad. Sierra promises him he can stay with her when they finally escape and they share a hug. The next morning the group follows Mina's marks until they find sign 134. There they free Darwin and start following him through the forest. Eventually they find a stone marker and Madeline explains that's where fairies were imprisoned after losing their war against humans. Since then they've been trying to come back, but they've lost their wings and magic, so now they can't stand the sun. As the group continues to run, Mina keeps seeing the little girls nearby. Soon it starts to rain and the birds fly around them, announcing nighttime. The group can hear the watchers coming, so they hurry up until they make it to the river. The women all manage to get on the boat, but Daniel hears John's voice and freezes. Seconds later, Daniel appears dragging John to the shore and Sierra tries to warn him it isn't real, but it's too late. The fake John changes forms and kills Daniel with its claws. Then its body goes blank as more watchers surround it to stare at the trio as they row away. Madeline tells the others not to worry because the watchers can't leave the forest. In the morning, the women plus Darwin finally find a bridge and get on it, waiting until a bus passes by. Thankfully the driver lets them in and they can relax as they return to the city. Later, while Mina showers, she keeps remembering her mother's death. She had been lying in the middle of the road and her sister kept calling for her while revealing scars on her face. The following day, Mina goes to the university to fulfill Rory's last wish, pretending she's his niece. She discovers the blueprint for the coup, the first draft of a research paper on the Watchers, and a tape recorder with some of Rory's research that follows an illustrated scroll. Before the war, the fairies lived peacefully with humans as friends and sometimes even mates. Those couples gave birth to half-blooded children that could walk under the sun, and Rory thought they could still be hiding in society as humans. Mina stares at a huge piece of art and finds some photographs that leave her in shock. In the evening, Mina visits Sierra and shows her the pictures she found, revealing that Madeline had been Rory's wife. However, she died in 2001 from lung cancer. Mina theorizes that Rory tried using the Watcher he captured to bring his wife back, then that Watcher became the Madeline they met. At that moment a car arrives at the house and the real Sierra appears, meaning the Madeline Watcher has pretending to be Sierra for Mina all along. The real Sierra enters the house and the Watcher crawls on the ceiling before becoming John, using his voice to distract Sierra and hit her unconscious. Mina tries to run away, but the Watcher catches up to her and starts throwing her around while complaining about humans and taking Daniel's form. A mirror breaks as Mina falls and she grabs a shard for defense, but the Watcher simply drags her around as it thanks her for helping it escape the forest. Then the Watcher goes outside as it takes on Madeline's form, explaining it's always wanted to leave the forest because the other Watchers mocked it for being able to walk under sun. They called it Daywalker and Deformity, so it went to Rory hoping he would help it escape. However, when Rory tried to shoot it, the Watcher killed him first. In just a few seconds, the Watcher transforms into Rory and then Mina, grabbing the real one by the neck to kill her and take her body. Mina confesses Rory had a secret and the Watcher drops her to let her talk, learning about half-bloods and how there are more of them hiding among humans out there. The Watcher realizes that while living as Madeline, it was capable to feel human emotions thanks to its mixed blood, and suddenly its body transforms to reveal wings. It flies out to land on the roof and tells Mina it hopes she's right about there being more of its kind before it flies away. Afterward, Mina checks on Sierra, who thankfully is fine. Sometime later, Mina finally visits her sister and her kids to reconcile. She also shares her experience in the forest, explaining she sometimes feels like the Madeline Watcher is hiding in the crowds, watching her. It takes different forms, but the most common one is the little girl Rory saw. On the window, Darwin watches the streets and the Watcher stares back at him. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.